Are you having to make a decision between raising rabbits or raising chickens? You're wondering which one should you go with? That's the topic of today's video, and that's coming up next. Hey guys, welcome back to another slightly redneck video. Again, my name is Chris, and if you're not familiar with this channel, I help you to produce your own meat, eggs, and vegetables from your backyard, your balcony, your deck, your garage, or heck, even a spare room in your house if that's the way you want to do it. In today's video, I'm discussing which is better, rabbits or chickens, and I'm going to discuss this from the perspective of the urban homestead. So if you live in town and you're limited with what you can do, you can only have one or the other, which one should you go with? Now let me start off with saying they both have benefits. Neither one is a wrong choice. But from my perspective, I think rabbits are a little bit better than chicken, and I'll tell you exactly why. First thing where I think that rabbits are better is housing. Rabbits are much easier, in my opinion, to house than chickens do. I have cages set up here that are 36 inches by 30 inches by 24 inches tall, and that's all the space that a rabbit needs. I've got a shed right here behind me that's about 14 feet long. It's got 4 of those cages in it. I've got 2 does and a buck. And that extra cage is for grow outs and you know, temporary housing for rabbits whenever I'm cleaning a cage or something like that. So much less space required. If you had chickens, you would need much more room. They need a yard to run in, to scratch in. If you keep them confined in a small area, they're going to scratch it down to dirt in no time whatsoever. So they really need a much larger area to roam in, to forage around. They need a coop to go into at night. They need to be locked up. You need to be letting them out in the morning, letting them in at night. Locking them in at night, letting them out in the morning. So there's a little bit more maintenance or a little bit more daily chores, I think, that goes along with keeping chickens than there's with rabbits. All that's involved with rabbits is just feed them and water them. That's it. Make sure they've got food, make sure they've got water. I do that on a daily basis, but it just takes a second or two, probably a minute or two, to go by and put some food in each one of their their feeders, and they're taken care of for the day. So a little bit easier on the maintenance side with rabbits than it is with chickens as well. Another benefit I see with rabbits over chickens is their manure, their droppings. Rabbit manure is a cold manure. It does not need to be composted before use, and it's a fantastic fertilizer. So you can throw it straight on your plants, your vegetable gardens, your flower beds, even your potted plants, and not worry about it burning your plants or giving too much nitrogen. Works great. Chicken manure, on the other hand, you're going to have to compost it before you use it as a fertilizer on your plants. It needs to be composted for, depending on how you compost, up to a year. You can do it a little bit as low as, quick as 2 weeks if you've got plenty of carbon material to throw in there. But up to a year in most cases before you can use it as a fertilizer. And in an urban homestead, it's a little bit hard to build a compost pile of chicken manure and not really bother your neighbors too much. Whereas rabbit manure, throw it straight on the garden, throw a little bit of grass clippings on top of it, keeps the smell down, you don't have to worry about it whatsoever. Which brings me to the next point, neighbors. Chickens do produce some noise. They're a little bit on the noisy side, not terrible, but it may annoy your neighbors quite a bit. Whereas rabbits, incredibly quiet, make no noise whatsoever. You can have rabbits here and chances are your neighbors won't even know you have them unless you tell them that you have them. So rabbits win out in that department as well. Much more neighbor friendly. Okay, another area I think that rabbits win out is in feed. It's much easier, in my opinion, to feed rabbits than it is to feed chickens. Now, chickens will do some of their own foraging. You let them out in your yard during the day, and they will forage for a lot of their own food. They'll eat insects, they'll eat different, plants, so some of those kinds of things that are laying around. Rabbits, on the other hand, you could do the same thing with, let them out in your yard, but chances are if you live in an urban environment, your yard is not really ideally suited for rabbits to be able to forage in. Now, with chickens, even though they're foraging, you do need to provide them with extra feed. So you're going to have to provide them usually with grit, with some kind of scratch, with some kind of calcium supplements. With rabbits, it's a spoonful or a cup full of pellets every day and a feeder full of hay. And that's it. It's much easier, in my opinion, to keep the rabbits fed than it is to keep chickens fed. Now, let me preface this. You can already tell I think rabbits are a better choice than chickens. If you can do both, by all means do both, because there are some benefits to having chickens. And I may add chickens to my flock or to my property at some point, because there are a lot of benefits that chickens provide. First of all, they provide you with eggs, obviously. Of course, I have another way to do that with quail, and I may do this same video, quail versus chickens, at some point, but chickens will provide you with eggs. Now, here's a downfall though. Something you get with rabbits you don't get with chickens. You get a meat production with rabbits. And you may be saying, well, you can have the same thing with chickens. But honestly, if you live in town, most places that allow chickens to be kept in town do not allow roosters. So you have no way to fertilize your eggs and actually incubate them out, hatch out chickens, and grow them up for meat. If you did have a way to do that, rabbits still produce more meat than chickens. Kind of, in a way. Produce it faster, let's put it that way. Because you're going to have a litter of 8 to 10 about every time, and they're ready to butcher at about 8 to 10 weeks old. Whereas chickens take closer to about 20 weeks to grow out to butcher size. Unless you get certain breeds which are unlikely you're going to want in an urban environment. So generally 20 weeks for them to grow out to butcher size. Some places where chickens do win for sure though is chickens will do extra work for you, whereas it's a little bit more difficult with rabbits. If you put rabbits out in your yard, they're probably going to dig holes in it. They're not going to be terribly destructive, but they will dig holes in certain places, and you're going to have a hard time keeping them inside a fenced yard. They're going to dig their way out. Whereas chickens, you can let them go in a fenced yard. They will scratch a lot, and if you're not careful, that can be destructive as well, but you can put that to work. If you put them in your garden beds in the fall, whenever all your plants are done, they'll go through and scratch that up and till it up for you, and they'll pull out the weeds for you, and they'll de-weed your garden bed for you. So that's a benefit to chickens if you want to put in the work to actually building the areas to where you can put them and focus their efforts. If you have a compost pile, they'll turn a compost pile for you. Let them go on that compost pile. Build a temporary fence around it, and they'll keep it turned for you. No problems whatsoever. And another benefit to chickens is they're just fun to watch. It's fun to watch a chicken running around the yard, scratching at things, pecking at things, chasing a bug. It's just humorous. It's comical. And they can be pretty sociable. So they can get to where they really attach to people. They like to be around people. So, I think there are some benefits to having chickens. I'm not knocking anybody for it. But if you had to choose one or the other, I would definitely say rabbits. There are a couple of things you probably think I'm leaving out. One of the things with rabbits you might think is a fur yield. That's a possibility, but honestly, when you're butchering rabbits, it's usually at 8 to 10 weeks old, somewhere right around in there, and they haven't really grown out their adult coat at that point, so it's really not suitable fur for anything but like craft purposes, maybe lining gloves with or something like that, but not really for full-fledged making clothing, making hats, making, anything like that. It's really not ideal for those situations. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's really not the perfect fur, leather quality for those kinds of applications. So I don't really consider that a yield off of the rabbits. All right, so those are my thoughts on which one is the best. Leave me your comments below. Which one do you think is the best for an urban setting if you have a small city lot? Or are you doing both? Which one do you find easier? Do you find better? Thank you guys so much for watching this video. And as always, God bless.